he's got external testosterones inside his body to stay fitter and look younger. What are you talking about? This is already happening.
It's already happening.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Even I want to experience that thing. Like, why do you have? I mean, eating, traveling, and sleeping. These are the three biggest time wasters.
Eating is still leisure.
Eating is still leisure.
Still fun.
Time waster, I wouldn't say, but these are the three things that consumes a lot of time.
Hi guys, welcome back to the To Synapse Pod. We have the king of routine, Ayush, with us today, and we have the king of Gryffindor, if you can see his shirt, Paras, and the king of spontaneity. I coined that for myself. So guys, today we're going to do a new format. We thought we've done last 16-17 episodes just discussing what's happening in politics, life, business, startups, tech, a lot of things. Today, the theme, and both of these guys don't know, but the theme is going to be predicting the future. One random question from each to the others, right? Anything and everything, whatever you can think of, any random topic, but it will go as a round robin. I will ask the first question. Both of you guys need to come up with an answer or whatever according to your understanding. Then it flips. We'll do a couple of rounds and we'll just pick each other's brains. Cool. It'll be cool,
yeah.
Right? Fine. Cool, perfect. So my first, we'll call it thoughts in the air. My first thought in the air for both of you to think about is you both need to give our audience and me two predictions which span 15 plus years or 20 plus years. So we're talking about 2040 or 2045, right? We are sitting right now in 2022. So we are essentially extrapolating our mind 20 years from now, and it can be as random as just waking up and seeing something, right? Two things you expect to see when you wake up on a Saturday morning in 2045 around you, in your loved ones' lives, in the world, what is happening, and we will just dig it on from there. Cool? Okay, Ayush, you want to start?
Sure. Two things, right?
Two things, yes.
So I'll start with one that comes straight.
So we'll do one, yeah. Cool.
So one thing that comes straight to my mind is having so many autonomous robots around in terms of physical form and in terms of software, maybe in terms of chatbots or AI, ML, whatever. I mean, if I wake up on a Saturday morning, 15 years from now, I might not be doing a lot of things. The tech would be taking care of a lot of things, like what should be the perfect temperature while I sleep, what should be the perfect temperature when I wake up, what's the view from my window, which is artificially looking into another world, right? Which improves my productivity as soon as I wake up and all those things. I mean, integration of tech, AI deeply into our daily lives is what I see 15 years from now.
So when you say robots, fixing temperatures, do you mean like, for example, you're wearing or you're sleeping with a blanket and that has some circuits inside it which keep you warm, measure your body temperature?
That can be the starting point, but I mean 15 years from now that might get evolved into something there in the atmosphere which I'm living in, and not based on a sensor which is attached to my body or onto my body, or if we go further, maybe something which is embedded into my body that manages the temperature of just my body and not anything around.
Oh, that's very cool. So, the thought which I get just by listening to him is there's this brilliant movie called Transcendence. Have you guys seen it?
I don't think so.
Okay. So the movie it has Johnny Depp in the movie. So he's a brilliant scientist, and he essentially dies, but he's able to store his consciousness in the cloud, and the consciousness merges with AI, and then he artificially creates his own body, the consciousness, and puts his consciousness into that body. So he's ever present everywhere, and then he just shows that how quickly he's doing discoveries or innovations. For example, he finds a cure to cancer. That consciousness inside a laboratory which he has made, and eventually, like the end scene of that movie is, he releases the most stable and actually the most beneficial nanobots into the atmosphere of the earth, and winds carry these nanobots across the earth, and these nanobots actually enter water streams,
Right.
they enter oceans, they enter air, they enter people, and they heal the planet. For example, they suck out the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, the bad greenhouse gases and everything.
Correct.
So some that kind of a vision, right?
Kind of things that we can't do, but a lot of army of bots can do.
Yeah, it's also a concept called nano dust.
Nanodust, yeah.
Nanodust. Smart dust.
Smart.
Yeah, where where there is a central self-conscious AI, which essentially dictates all these nanobots. Which is fucking crazy. No? Very cool. What do you think, Paras?
About this?
About this, or what's your prediction?
No, this sounds cool. Very much possible. I think we're just lazy people. We'll
Yeah.
figure out more ways to
Exactly.
be able to stay even more lazy. So that will definitely, that's in the right line of our behaviors.
Yeah.
What I see, I mean, it won't be very visible, but I think we would have already shifted to majority energy being produced from clean sources. I think that 50% mark we will cross in 15 years because I see things will grow very exponentially. And in fact, I was reading about India also. India has grown like more than 10x. At least it was at least 10x with respect to our solar production or solar's contribution to the nation's energy requirements. It has grown 10x over last decade. So I think clean sources of energy is something which the world will go very bullish on over the next 15 years, and we will have majority being done from clean sources, and that would also be like visible that it's a function of time that will be on 100% very soon. I can't say 15 years will be 100%, but I think will be majority.
So when you say clean sources, which are you most bullish about?
Which am I most bullish about? Of course, solar seems smart right now. Like a lot of adoption is happening, and it's able to produce also. The cost has been coming down.
Yeah.
In fact, in some geographies, it has already dipped. Like it also depends on how much sunlight exposure stays. And in some geographies, it's already actually cheaper than the fossil fuel generated energy. So I think we'll go very fast. Solar will go very fast.
In solar, you were doing some study about some kind of.
Yes, in fact, not solar. I was doing a study about clean energy only.
Yeah.
And so my prediction would be just taking your thought onto the next level. There is a concept, this beautiful concept about a mega structure called a Dyson sphere. Now, Dyson sphere is essentially satellites with solar panels and reflective glasses which are around the native star of a solar system. So imagine a sphere around the sun, which is like a mesh sphere where all these satellites are connected to each other, but they encompass the whole sun. They collect the energy, they send that to a central relay station out in space, and then they beam that energy back to Earth. Because as soon as solar energy travels through the atmosphere, it loses 60% of its potency. Like if 100 watts is being transferred, 60 watts is only 60 watts is lost. Only 40 watts is able to be transferred. So what it does is instead of capturing, instead of just relying on what we get from sun, we can concentrate the sun's energy from outer space and beam it back to a receiver on Earth in the form of a microwave. And why microwave? Because microwaves are the most easiest to produce instead of a laser. Because even if you do laser, the throughput loss is massive. Like you can beam a laser
because it's photons.
It's photon, absolutely. So if you just do microwaves, you can build multiple receivers across Earth. All these receivers can collect that energy, and it's essentially abundant and free, and 24/7, which is a loss which does not happen with traditional solar panels which you put on Earth. So this concept came out in 1970s as a Dyson sphere, and there are three types of civilization. Like to shift a civilization from a civilization which only eats the energy of its planet by mining. As soon as we go beyond our atmosphere, we shift to a type 1 civilization where we are using the complete 100% energy independence of our star.
Yeah.
So I can imagine seeing a Dyson sphere
In 15 years, no, I don't think so.
no, at least some construction of like
Yeah.
some
Prototypes.
probably some just startups, right?
Yeah.
Just trying to create that mesh array. And you know the MVP for this would be the easiest. Just create a satellite which goes outside the atmosphere, just sucks in the energy and beams it in the form of a microwave. Just one satellite. That is the MVP. If you can prove that and you can show that the loss of energy is less, you have then imagination to run. So that is something which I feel interesting. Ayush, what would be your second?
What's your first?
This was my first, like Dyson sphere.
That's an additive.
That's an additive.
Yeah.
Fine. All right. There's another one. I think we will not want to travel to distant planets. I feel like the whole Mars consumer psychology would change that. I don't want to go to Mars because it's really hostile, the environment right now, and of course some visionaries will start to establish some kind of a base, but at least for the next 50 to 60 years, I don't see people making that conscious choice of letting go of all the luxuries of Earth, at least the rich, and going there. But what I also see is there would be what people will start to do is, if we are able to digitize our consciousness, right? They will start to slingshot their consciousness to other planets in the form of small robots or satellites which can travel very close to the speed of light. It's like like a slingshot.
Yeah.
Once you slingshot it, for example, I can send Chirag to Mars just by slingshotting my consciousness, and that consciousness is captured by a receiver on Mars, and then this whole movie Avatar, which you have seen, right? We don't need to physically transport our fragile organic body to another planet. We can just transport our consciousness, and then there is a metal body over there, or a robot, or some other organism which on which the consciousness is transpired.
We don't have to physically screenshot the consciousness. It can go
Digitally.
Yeah, I think so. It's
But
data.
it's data, yeah, some photons or some form of energy.
Yeah, you have to
Needs to be
use
done.
some form of energy to transfer it, right?
Yeah.
For
Correct.
sure.
Yeah.
Correct. I mean, maybe there is not a requirement of physically slingshotting it, but we can just beam consciousness in the form of an energy that.
What was that show? Altered Carbon?
Altered carbon. Yeah. So it had a concept of sleeves instead of bodies.
Yeah.
It's like you have.
I usually please explain the concept of altered carbon in detail. That's
Okay, so I mean
mind-blowing.
it's similar to what Chirag has already said in the movie of Transcend. You as a human. So the idea is that as a human we let's say spend 80 years of our time on a planet, right? So we have an experience of 80 years of our lifetime which goes away if the person dies, right? What if you can store this consciousness and add it to a sleeve, which is a human body? So right now, of course, there's a very strong debate on this. If we replace a heart in a person or if we replace a mind in a person, which is the same person, right? It's a very neurological debate that keeps happening. If we which one triumphs over heart and brain? If
Heart is still being replaced, but brain has never been replaced.
Yeah.
because brain has never been replaced.
Yeah.
So if you replace a brain, if let's say I take your brain and put it into Chirag's body, so will that be Paris, Chirag, or a
None
combination
of
of
or both.
both, right? I mean, apart from that, so what was happening in this altered carbon is you're storing this consciousness and you're transferring it into a sleeve,
which is a body.
Right. Which is a biological body, but with a new consciousness.
Yeah.
So the person never dies. The consciousness
Is transferred.
Consciousness on cloud.
on
Yeah.
cloud.
And the crazy part is that you can choose the kind of body you want. So if you spend more money, you can probably buy a body which looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Correct.
When he was young.
Correct.
You could actually upgrade your body.
Yeah.
Upgrade the sleeve based on how much you can spend. So what they show in that show is that there is a massive grey market for body upgradation.
Sleeves, body upgrades.
Yeah. For example, I want
Crazy.
a certain thing in my body. I can, and because it's ultimately body is just a sleeve. Then it's just the carrier of your consciousness. So there is a grey market.
Yeah,
for
you
it.
can be a ninja, you can be a warrior, you can be
Yeah.
superstar.
Yeah.
Body is like clothes suddenly.
Suddenly,
Yeah,
exactly.
correct. Exactly. It's like a clone.
It's something your consciousness wears.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to
Correct.
look a certain way.
Yeah. And scientifically, you know what? Just I was also reading that.
Then do people get attracted to other person's consciousness or sleep? Because sleep can be changed.
Only the consciousness.
Only.
Only the consciousness.
Only the consciousness. So that they also show that there's a family and the husband dies, but his consciousness is stored. Then the consciousness goes into a deep freeze. So after 10, 15, 20 years, the consciousness is put when the family can afford or someone can afford. They bail out the guy from deep freeze. They put his consciousness into another body. He goes back to his family, and his family recognizes the way he talks or the mind,
Consciousness.
even though he does not look the same.
Consciousness as collateral.
Yeah. Oh man, there was such a crazy thing that the prisons will change. It would be consciousness torture for a third degree. Imagine, they would put the consciousness into a third degree virtual world where it would feel like you've passed 100 years in, let's say, 2 minutes.
Oh.
Get it? So they would they would make it slow, and then they would torture, and then they would break your consciousness, because ultimately it's more like mental damage. So that show is mind blowing.
Sounds too centralized.
Governments.
To summarize.
But yeah, you know what? I was also reading that it's not very far away. People have been trying to digitize consciousness for a long time, and it's a mixture of nanotechnology, biology, and physics. So what they do is, okay, what do you guess can be the easiest way to digitize consciousness? What do you think?
Take access to my Google Drive. If 50% you're there,
Sure.
you know what I do, what I eat.
Sure.
Correct. Or, I mean, like machine learning. Like you are training a machine, right? So what if you can train a machine with your consciousness and eventually it transforms into an AI which can take neurological decisions because of all the machine learning it has done. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, uploading your consciousness from the cloud.
Yeah.
Which was shown in
Yeah.
TV series.
But
Black Mirror or
let's
something.
say there are two types, right? One is sentient, which is which is intelligence, and the other is just a bare basic structure of who you are, what you are, right? Of your likes and dislikes. Just as a so what these people are doing, they're taking a person's brain right now, of course, in experiments. They're slicing it in the most thinnest layers, right? And they're reactivating the brain by electrical impulses. Then what do? They put an enzyme inside a slice.
Yeah.
As soon as they put an enzyme inside the slice, that enzyme goes and attaches to individual neurons. Now there are billions of neurons. If you want to map billions of neurons, and as soon as they put a trigger, let's say 5 neurons light up. A trigger of, let's say, dopamine or pleasure. So they know that, these 5 neurons can be mapped onto a digital structure. And that is how I'm mapping your brain. Individual neuron to individual neuron. Instead of a surface level that I can access your Google Drive or Google Photos, right? Because those are essentially your sensory inputs to the world and your outputs to the world as well. But it is not actually going to the the most fundamental layer of consciousness, which is your neurons, and how they connect and interact with each other.
I mean, that's one way. I think that's far too complex way of putting it. I'm saying what I was saying with respect to Google Drive access, far more achievable and practically covers 80% of someone's life. So many people you have never interacted with, or you have not interacted with over 2 years. You don't know whether they will physically exist. All you see is their WhatsApps, Instagram, their digital footprint, which is way too easily replicable and can be projected. Like some software can take over, keep running it for 3 years, and probably will never realize that the person doesn't even exist anymore. So that practically covers a lot of ground.
True.
I think that ground can be achieved very fast. Yeah, but the beauty lies in complexity. Like the moment you go beyond it, then the closed circle also becomes reachable with this concept of consciousness being stored on.
But Paris, there are two ways to build a brain, right? One is I recreate a brain by seeing your existing data.
Yeah.
So I am trying to reverse engineer it.
Hmm.
The second way is I go first principles. I don't want any data. I will map neurons and then try to see if the brain is being created. Right? It's just two ways, like coming from the opposite ends.
I mean, from what I know, what I've studied, it's not for sure that brain is just about neurons. It might be much more than that. So just mapping of neurons or the neural pathways might just actually not be it. Like that's what we think.
What do you think can be the addition? Like, are you talking about soul or?
No, I mean experiences. Where do they get stored? Of course, they're like charged on nodes, but does that totally is it totally replicable in true sense?
So you're saying that because ultimately brain is a complex organism of chemical transfer, right? From one chemical shorting from one neuron to the other neuron to the other neuron.
Theoretically, yes.
Right, which triggers the whole machine. So I mean we may be very naive in understanding if that is the only one-to-one.
But let's get there.
Yeah,
then see what happens.
Coming from both.
So
ends.
I mean, the brain has more number of neurons than the number of stars
in the
universe,
whole visible universe.
and we don't know about the universe, right? So and brain study is like 30 years old, whereas we have been studying universe since 100 years or so.
Do you know how we got to know that memory is stored in brains?
How?
Because people with head injuries lost memories.
Yeah,
We
right, correct.
didn't really have any data on whether we
Exactly.
saw it from observation
Correct. So
that
that's
most people who lose their memory were those who were in accidents which had head injuries.
Correct. So this brain study is so new, so naive. Like a lot of work has been done by likes of Michio Kaku and all. Right. So it's very new.
So Ayush, what about the second prediction?
Okay.
So do we get a round to picker here and then
I wish we could afford it right now. But yeah, second.
So basically, I was reading this very interesting data point which one of our friends shared in the group today. Is the rent of a house is like 3% of the cost of the house. Talking about India's geography, right? So when you can get a 3 BHK, 4 BHK at a 3%, then why do you purchase the house? So, I mean, definitely COVID has slowed down the pace of the shared economy. But, I mean, when things get better and if we are seeing at a 15 years of horizon, I mean, this, apart from very luxury, ultra luxury houses, a lot of people might shift to a shared economy. Not owning a piece of asset because it is so cheap to have or rent that asset is what I think will increase in share, which might change a lot of way how the assets are being created. Because right now we create, let's say, house as an asset. We create a house for a permanent point of view, with a permanent point of view. But if it's a transitionary point of view, which we take while building a house, it might change. The space might change. How it's being constructed might change. So I mean, that's what my prediction is, like the shared economy will increase. The share of the shared economy will increase, and people won't want to own a house. Like they won't want to own a car, and more people will move to a rental model despite having the money. It's not about the money. Despite having the money, they might invest in different other things, but for other things, they might become like digital nomads and not own a permanent property.
So Ayush, just for my clarity, owning sharing a car and sharing a house are very different things, right? Because we'll talk about your guys' experiences as well. If I were to buy a house, it would be more like an investment into an asset, because that asset itself appreciates in value for the same simple reason of demand and supply. Population is increasing, the space is small, hence more people need houses, there is that limited land, the price goes up, right? So appreciation of the value of asset versus the yield that the asset produces on a year-on-year basis. They are two different concepts. So as soon as I go to car, that is a depreciating asset because it's
Correct. Yeah.
right.
True.
So I can share it. So I would try to maximize the yield of the car
Yeah.
instead of the asset value.
Yeah.
So do you think this is a good enough argument to not go into sharing of real estate as an economy where people will continue to buy and accumulate land, apartments, or other kind of real estate for the appreciation versus a car?
So that's what I said. Like, if you want to go for an asset that gives you value or appreciates in value, people might go for a alternate asset instead of owning a property. I mean, the concept of digital nomad. So this concept was not there because the world was not connected. Since we are seeing the world getting more connected, the more people. I mean, I have heard about so many people shifting to Bali, shifting to Vietnam, working from there for 6 months and then traveling to another country for 6 months. I mean, these kind of people won't need a permanent house, right? Because they're already traveling.
Yeah.
And these are intellectual people. They have a high paying job. So I mean, there's a behavior change.
Yeah.
How people look at house as an investment versus as a place to live and do things. So that's why I think. I mean, not counting it as a part of investment, but owning a house to live in is the behavior that might change in the coming years.
What do you think, Bharat?
I mean, multiple nuances to it. If I start with some non-mathematical reasoning, then I think a big reason why people buy a house is also that these people somehow believe that unlimited amount of bad can happen to them and they'll have no money one day. So at least they should have a roof over their head. No matter how rich, wealthy they are, they can still foresee that, there might be a possibility that I might not have any money, will I have a roof over my head? So partly it's because of that, because it can't just be that I want to own a house or it's an investment or there's a mathematical right? It's a big emotional decision also in most cultures, in a lot of cultures.
I mean,
Chinese culture.
In China, it's like if a guy doesn't have a house, a girl won't marry him. So it's very prevalent in Chinese culture.
Are you saying it's an NFT to having a marriage life? I need to have that key.
So there are a lot of emotional factors to that. The way I look at a car versus a house, what I see that a house has a lower rental yield till the time majority people believe that the prices will go up, because the wealth creation in appreciation of price is being offset by lower rents. So I'm happy to give it at a lower rent, because I know the price will increase in some other direction. So there is more competition. People are ready to give at a lower rent rate. Somewhere it stabilizes at 3%. Of course, in case of a car, the value depreciates, the yield has to be maximized, like you were saying. So it should not make sense to actually move to a more shared economy side. But what I see is that if frequency of change of that sector is very high, then the incentive to own something decreases. For example, I don't want to own a smart fridge right now because I know how fast it's going to change, or it's at very early stages. I'm happy owning a smartphone because I know smartphones are not really changing as such, hardware specifications wise, over 2-3 years. But if smartphones were exponentially changing every 2 years, I would have thought
Makes sense.
Every 2 months, if they were changing, I would have thought, do I want to own it? Like right now, I have very huge doubt on, do I want to own a Oculus Quest Pro or do I want to rent an Oculus Quest Pro? Because I'll own something for $1,500 and they'll come up with a version 2 in like 5 months. And then it will be useless to me because I would not want to stay on the second best piece of tech. So I think in a depreciating asset, if the pace of change of tech is slow, then ownership will still be relevant. And of course, there is a Tesla side to it that the car will earn money for you. But I think then again the stability kicks in because there will be so many more people to offer the same things. That's how I look at it.
Makes sense. So, Parsh, what is your second prediction?
My second prediction is just look at what rich people don't want to do, and they will not, and a lot of people will not have to do that 15 years from now. Like if a rich person doesn't like to cook their own meal, and wants to have a personalized meal every time, probably that's something that will happen to everyone. But in general, I mean, a lot of prediction can be made through this lens. But one of the strongest that I really believe in is that every rich person has big time FOMO with respect to time. They think they have very less time in this world. Like they might be 40 and they'll think they have very less time in this world. And what's the biggest loss of time that we have? Sleeping. So I think a lot of people might just give up on sleeping in 15 years because of some external drug, implants, whatever. I think a good section of society will not need to sleep. They might sleep as leisure probably, but they will not need to sleep. And the rich will definitely not sleep. They'll be after it. I'm telling you, Jeff Bezos will not sleep in 15 years. So he's got external testosterone inside his body to stay fitter and look younger. What are you talking about? This is already happening.
It's already happening.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Even I want to experience that thing. Like, why do you have? I mean, eating, traveling, and sleeping. These are the three biggest time wasters.
Eating is still leisure.
Eating is still leisure.
Still fun.
Time waster, I wouldn't say, but these are the three things that consumes a lot of time in a daily life out of 24 hours. And I think humans can be more productive if all the biology suggests the other way. I mean, you need to have sleep.
So to a lot of people, it might sound like dystopia. But but I want to break this down into two parts. One is the experience of leisure and pleasure that you get from eating, sleeping, and traveling, right? So we need to retain the experience of it while shortening the time required for it, right?
Yeah, correct.
Where we can elongate the time in perceptual value that, hey, I have traveled for 2 weeks. Output should be same. The output to our psyche should be same. And but the input can change. I don't need to actually go and sleep for 12 hours. But if there is a pill,
who sleeps 12 hours?
Come on, guys, Sundays. Anyway, so I don't need to sleep for 12 hours. But if I could just pop a pill, or if I could just go into a cryogenic chamber for 15 minutes, and my brain is flushed with the same enzymes, which causes the same relaxation and
same simulation.
Same simulation, and I'm active again in a 15-minute time span. That would do the trick.
Yeah.
Right? No, that's very interesting.
My prediction is F you sleep. Sleep.
15 years. That's insane. So my prediction is the way people love will change. And I'm saying love their partners, or the concept of partners will change. So I made this prediction long ago, just like LGBTQ as a concept is not very common in or very well understood in the generation previous to us or the previous to us, especially in Southeast Asia. But now for our generation we are very normalizing it, and it's completely cool. I think the concept of polygamy will be the major shocker to the generation which is right now, and monogamy is going to go out for a toss. So probably imagine your kids coming and telling you that, hey, I'm polygamous, are you okay with it? And I believe that a lot of people of our generation will not be okay with it. So I feel these generational shifts will happen between human interactions. And also, as you have seen in Japan, right? A lot of people have given up on the concept of having a male or a female human partner in their life, but they're actually dating AIs. They're dating digital partners, where they and people spend shitloads of money today on a digital AI partner. Yeah, anime. And that is happening in a niche, right?
Yeah.
Imagine this exploding to the world, and I'm telling you, if you had to draw a parallel, just draw a parallel to porn, right? Porn causes dopamine in people's head, which gives you certain kinds of pleasure, right? It was not there 100 years ago. They were brothels, right? There came a massive distributional change as soon as porn came. Similarly, companionship. Millions of people having issues in their married life or relationships, right? What if they start to shift or opt for digital partners where they would eliminate all the bad things that come with companionship and just retain the good ones. That would be crazy. Wouldn't that be crazy?
So the sexuality part of it or the sex part of it becomes entirely physical,
Yeah,
which is where you're saying the polygamy will kick in.
yeah.
And for our emotional intimacy, we'll go to digital partners.
Yeah,
That's-
imagine.
That's what you're saying.
That can be one way.
One way.
Or for the sexual part, there is also sex dolls. The sales of sex dolls, it's insane in Japan. The amount of people who opt in for these kind of things is crazy. What I'm seeing is Japan is a massive experimental sandbox
Yeah.
of the future. And if that's guys, porn was came first. The first hints of porn started in Japan, where they started to digitize brothels, and the whole industry spanned out from there.
But Japan is also facing a population collapse.
crisis.
Japan somehow feels to me that it's not everything that is happening in Japan might not be scalable because it's a lot built on scarcity of a lot of things.
Correct.
Like scarcity of resources, things are extremely expensive.
Scarcity of land,
Living,
land resources.
earning your living is very stressful.
Yeah.
The work culture is bad. So, not having kids might not be just about the generations there have gone intelligent and don't believe in having kids. Probably they just
No.
can't afford kids anymore, so they're not having kids. So possible that could also be one way.
So I think there's a concept in Japan called kiroshi, which is death by overwork. So it is a very common sight in Japan to see a man or a woman walking back from work at 2 a.m. in the night, wearing a suit and coat, and like just carrying their suitcase, and then reporting back to work at 8 a.m. It is actually, and Japan had to create public holidays so that people would not work and come and bloody spend money on leisure so that the GDP increases. They actually invent holidays because it is culturally such a hotpot that people just want to obey their masters or elders or bosses, and so there's a weird thing that the first one to leave the office in Japan is looked down upon. That it is, and it actually matters in your promotion. If you leave the office first, other people will look at it. They would think that he is not very hardworking or she is not very hardworking, and then the word goes to the boss, and it actually affects in promotion. So
That's true for some Indian companies also.
True, that's true. But the difference between West and East is so massive right now in terms of just work
But
culture.
actually, I mean, all these conditions that you're talking about is one of the main reasons that it's forcing people to not have intimate partnerships, intimate relationships, because they're overworked, overstressed, deep into AI, anime, different other. They have different distractions already at place, which is, letting it to the verge of population collapse,
True.
population crisis.
True.
So I would not want to scale model of Japan. Instead of that, we would want to take out like good parts of it and then experiment.
So you're saying that since the creator economy is booming and people are doing things on their own time, this would shift.
This would shift.
This should shift. It is a natural progression. Is what
I
it is.
think the way you were saying that the way people love will change, the way people love right now, that will change in future. I think it makes sense actually. It might happen because I see that the constraints that we built as society for progress, those constraints are just coming down with every generation.
Yeah.
Because those constraints are not needed for human civilization progress anymore. Or are not entirely needed. So if let's say the concept of staying with family as a whole, like it's going down, right? Nuclear family is increasing, probably because houses are more safe, or colonies are more safe, societies are more created. So you don't need 20 people in the family to fight a fight. You have guards around you somewhere. So you can be a little more safer than you would have been in a nuclear family setup probably 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So similarly for like why was monogamy made? So that we don't find our success in mating success.
Yeah.
So we focus on better things.
Yeah.
That's the most logical thing why monogamy could have been created. So maybe after 15 years, this monogamy is not needed for human civilization progress. So the generations start to feel that why is it even needed? Like if they start to see that there is no benefit of this, then they will. I would look at myself, I think 20 years later at this video, and I'll feel like a boomer.
When you have the nanobots doing your work and advancing the civilization, then what will you do?
Yeah, probably spend all my time in pleasure.
But is it also possible that a lot of then like previously physical safety was an issue, tomorrow emotional or mental safety becomes a much bigger issue, which probably pushes a lot of people away from polygamy once again. Like maybe we go to polygamy and then come back somewhere in between.
Imagine all these, the AI that we are creating, right? It is meant to be so personalized to you that at the first instant of discomfort, it would know it would track it, and it would fix it for you. Whether it's emotional instability or stress or companionship or anything, it would know you in and out more than you know yourself, because it's directly embedded inside you. What do you think about that? Then it becomes slightly contradictory that we are moving towards such a personalized world.
It's an interesting question. Whether I'll choose higher productivity or higher control. Once I have unlimited of, like I have good control over what I do, what I want, what I feel, what I don't want to feel. AI integration with me will of course make me exponentially more productive. But I start to lose control. Then to what extent will I want to lose control to become more efficient? So I'm not sure what's the clear answer to this. Probably we'll feel it and we'll know it, and every person will have different level of AI supplement or AI external support.
Makes sense. Have we done the second round for you? Yeah.
Shared houses.
Shared. Love. Sleep. No, fuck you, sleep.
Perfect. I think cool. We should call it a day then. Thanks guys. Thanks a lot for watching us. Please like, share, subscribe.
Comment, subscribe.
Yes. And then please be free to share the podcast with people who you think can be valuable for. We are just guys who are trying to bring out our thoughts about what we read, what we learn about the world, and share it with all of you. Would love to know if there is any way we can improve the podcast for all of you.
And if you have predictions for what can happen in the next 15 years, please put them in the comments below. We would love to know.
Yeah, that would be insane. Perfect. Thanks a lot. Bye.